like the translations of Finn translations.
Yeah, we finished it.
Turn that in.
Yeah, but you never turned it in.
Wait, what are we doing today? Are we doing the
If
book?
you lost it, we're gonna fight.
Yeah.
I don't like this book. I think it's really
I want to.
Well, prepare to have the rest of your class week. Right? What? Yeah, we're going back to that Finn.
Oh, I'm very proud of you.
Where'd she go? Oh, here, yeah, no one else. Seriously, you will have the SSR conference and reading log will be in by grades. Yeah, you definitely should.
Amazing.
Why is it hot in here?
Why do you think this man should take off screen?
It's like a Zoom So what is this like the first day in like 2.5 weeks you haven't been testing? It seems like 2.5 weeks. It's the first time in 2 weeks you haven't been testing. Getting back into our old routine at least for the next 3 days. Come in, SSR 20 minutes, have your book out, have your reading log out. Will, if you could just grab a book from the cabinets and just read silently. I'll come around, give some stamps, I'll collect those finally, your reading logs on Friday. After Friday, no SSR conferences will be allowed, so have to get it done between then and now. And remember, they each take they're designed to take 5 minutes, but they have been taking longer just because some of your questions are super in-depth, and I don't want to interrupt you, so 20 minutes of SSR, have to get the SSR conferences done by the end of Friday.
This is yours.
Yeah.
What the heck? It was too busy.
I think it's more fun to watch other people's. Matthew here today? No.
Kind of weird. I need to sign up for my switch look.
You're reading Harry Potter?
Wait, are you serious?
Is Xavier here today?
I still don't know that.
Well, now you know. Now you can say hi. Kind of concerning to me. I'm not doing an SHR conference during this period. Because there are definitely more students who need to do it than there are slots. Keep that in mind. Yes. You don't have your reading log out. Be a good idea to get it out because I am continuing a stamp through Friday. What? Haven't heard of it. You haven't started already, have you? She's right there as well. She said she was to see. It's just testing. I didn't count it as, yeah, I didn't count it as an actual, just like extra time to do it. But yeah, good for you for actually reading. Yeah, I'll get to you. Okay, go ahead and take the next 1 or 2 minutes for your reading. Write down a couple summary sentences of anything you read. Be great. After you are finished, go ahead and pick up the Huckfin book, the Look from Lawyer's Test. You'll also need out your reading guide. The refresher, the packet looks like this. It's your best friend.
What are we talking about?
After we read it.
Study guide.
Oh, wait.
I don't know how to help you.
Oh, right. For those of you who are wondering when we're turning in the dialogue translation worksheet, we turn that in Wednesday.
Wait, what?
But the dialogue translation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was already with that for
Why would you do that knowing you had data in it?
No one said, I didn't know what we were doing and I didn't want to bring it.
Sorry. Is this Yeah. Well, that's what we do on Wednesday. Yes.
I agree.
So what chapter do we leave off on? Chapter 6, chapter 20, chapter 800, chapter 3?
Throwing cake.
What do you think that
So I have one person saying that we are on chapter 14. Is that the general consensus?
No, we're on 13.
I told you then that I was losing now. We're on it today.
What's the last chapter?
Jesus, Andrea, listen.
The guy who lies in story was in chapter 14.
Sorry, what is the last chapter you have us having read? Okay, so a few of you say we're in chapter 13, and a few of you say we're on chapter 14.
You might as well start back.
I will take 30 seconds to read the entire chapter. Wait, because I will be right here.
How do you know where it's not? Different class that you're taking.
What is your final mark?
What even is life?
I don't know what this 34 is.
Well, life is complicated.
Well, the final is tomorrow.
Well,
I know,
I've heard, but not quite. Is there a movie? There are several movies on this. Are we gonna watch it? Maybe.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's out there.
It's a possibility.
I need to know these.
You don't need to know yet. What you need to know, Caleb, what everyone needs to know, pay attention. Thank you. Don't worry about the final quite yet. It is over a month away.
5 weeks away.
5 weeks. Yeah. Over a month. Yeah. But hey, what you need to do is you need to pay attention today, tomorrow, and every day, and every class that you're in. So that way, you're preparing every day for the final. You just don't know it. So even though I'm not telling you that, you know, X amount of questions from Huckfin are going to be on the final, if they are, doesn't mean you don't have to prepare for it yet. You have to prepare for it starting now. So, page 76, and so since some people, yeah, thanks for that. And since some people have not yet read chapter 13, think they have not, let's go over what chapter 13, the important points of chapter 13. So someone who answered number 1 from chapter 13, raise your hand, please.
Wait, what's the number 12?
Who answered number 1 in chapter 13? Paul.
They stole the murderer's boat.
They stole a murderer's boat. And how did they feel? How did Huck and Jim feel about stealing that boat? It was just kind of a thing of necessity. Actually, Huck felt bad. Remember, Huck felt bad about the murderer's plight. He's like, oh no, they're going to drown. And so this is interesting about Huck because it shows that Huck is kind of a multi-dimensional person because, hey, these people are murderers, so they must be really bad. I don't have to have any feelings for them. Yet Huck does. He's like, oh no, they're going to drown. So that's basically what that was.
That's so sad.
And number 2, eloquently stated as, what does think about the robber murderers? And that's a continuation of that question. What does Huck think about the robber murderers? And he feels bad for them. He wants to help them in a way he can. And what he thinks back is he thinks back to how the widow Douglas and Miss Watson would think about him. Because he says, hey, I'm going to try and, or actually, he doesn't say I'm going to help these people. What he is, he thinks he wants to help these people. And Miss Watson and the widow Douglas would approve of this because in their beliefs and their views, they espouse to help people when needed. And that's what Huck was trying to do. He wanted to help them, even though they were murdering people, and they seemed like they had the capacity to violently harm Huck and Jim as well. So, anyone have any scenarios where they can connect with that? Like someone does something terrible to maybe another person, or even maybe they do something that's hurtful to you, and you react by thinking about what's in their best interest. Cameron.
When the guy tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan, and he put him in a mental institute instead of maybe go to prison.
Okay, yeah, connecting to social sciences. That's fine. Yeah, no, that's fine.
What's so funny about that one?
Yeah, Ronald, the
I
president
thought
could
you
have
meant
said
personal. Ronald Reagan.
personal social science. Hey, anything you want to connect to, that's fine. I'm here to listen, make connections, endorse conversations. So yeah, exactly. The guy could have been sent to the gas chamber, essentially, or the electric chair. The death penalty. You try and assassinate the president, you're in for a world of hurt. So anyway, anyone have a personal connection? Anything with that? Randy.
When my brother eats my Pop-Tarts, I might be mad, but at least he's not as hungry.
Okay.
That's what you think about when your brother steals your Pop-Tart.
All right. Stay with me, guys. Everyone need to just pay attention, not get caught off on Pop-Tarts because it's funny. But this is a good example because it's very relatable. I personally like the brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
They're the best.
I love those ones.
Yes.
Of course
And
you
if
are.
someone were to eat them, first off, I would be upset. Let's not be honest. I would be upset at first, like, why are you eating my Pop-Tarts without asking? But if I noticed that they were suddenly a lot more cheery and they were healthy and they weren't tired anymore, I'd feel, maybe they needed that sugar rush more than I did. So that's kind of a simple example, but it works. So thank you for that.
Why are you in my house?
So what page are we on, Josh?
76.
76. We're going to reinvigorate our love of Hillary Clinton right now.
Chapter 14. By and by, when we got up, we turned over the truck the gang had stole off of the wreck. We found boots and blankets and clothes and all sorts of other things. A lot of books and a spyglass and 3 boxes of cigars. We had never been this rich before in neither of our lives. The cigars was prime. We laid off all the afternoon in the woods talking, and me reading the books and having a general good time. I told Jim all about what happened inside the wreck and at the ferry boat, and I said these kinds of things was adventures. But he said he didn't want no more adventures. He said that when I went into Texas and he crawled back to get on the raft and found her gone and he nearly died because he judged it was all up with him any way it could be fixed. Or if he didn't get saved, he would get drowned. And if he did get saved, whoever saved him would send him back home so as to get the reward, and then Miss Watson would sell him south, sure. Well, he was right. He was most always right. He had an uncommon level head for a nigger. I read considerable to Jim about kings and dukes and earls and such, and how gaudy they dressed, and how much style they put on, and called each other your majesty and your grace and your lordship and so on, instead of mister. Jim's eyes bugged out, and he was interested. He says, I didn't know there was so many of them. I ain't heard about none of them, scarcely, but old King Solomon, unless you count them kings that's on a pack of cards. How much do a king get? Get, I says. Why, they get $1,000 a month if they want it. They can have just as much as they want. Everything belongs to them. Ain't that gay? What do they got to do, Huck? They don't do nothing. Why, how you talk? They just sit around. No, is that so? Of course it is. They just sit around, except maybe when there's a war. Then they go to war. But other times, they just lazy around or go hawking. Just hawking and... Shh. Did you hear a noise? We skipped out and looked. But it weren't nothing but the flutter of a steamboat's wheel away down, coming around the point. So we come back. Yes, says I. And other times, when things is dull, they fuss with the parliament. And if everybody don't go just so, he whacks their heads off. But mostly they hang around the harem. Round the which? Harem. What's the harem? The place where he keeps his wives. Don't you know about the harem? Solomon had one. He had about 1 million wives. Why, yes, that's so. I done forgot it. A harem's a boarding house, I reckon. Most likely they has rackety times in the nursery. And I reckon the wives quarrels considerable, and that creased the racket. Yet they say Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived. I don't take no stock in that, because why? Would a wise man want to live in the midst of such a blim-blamming all the time? No, deed he wouldn't. A wise man would take and build a Bible factory, and then he could shut down the Bible factory when he want to rest. Well, but he was the wisest man anyway, because the widow, she told me so, her own self. I don't care what the widow say. He weren't no wise man nother. He had some of the dad-fatchest ways I ever see. Did you know about that child that he was going to chop into? Yes, the widow told me all about it. Well then, weren't that the beatenest notion in the world? You just take and look at it a minute. There's a stump there. That's one of the women. Here's you. That's the other one. I's Solomon. And this here dollar bill's the child. Both of you claims it. What does I do? Does I shin around amongst the neighbors and find out which one of you the bill do belong to? And hand it over the right one, all safe and sound the way that anybody that had any gumption would? No. I take and whack the bill in two, and give half of it to you, and the other half to the other woman. That's the way Solomon was going to do it with the child. Now I want to ask you, what's the use of the half of the bill? Can't buy nothing with it. And what use is half a child? I wouldn't give a darn for 1 million on them. But hang it, Jim, you've clean missed the point. Blame it, you've missed it 1,000 miles. Who, me? Go along, don't talk to me about your pints. I reckon I know sense when I sees it. And there ain't no sense in such a doing as that. Dispute weren't about a half a child. Dispute was about a whole child. And the man that think he can settle a dispute about a whole child with a half a child don't know enough to come out in the rain. Don't talk to me about Solomon Huck. I know him by the back. But I tell you, you don't get the point. Blame the point. I reckon I knows what I knows. And mind you, the real pine is down further. It's down deeper. It lays in the way Solomon was raised. You take a man that's got only 1 or 2 children. Is that man going to be wasteful of children? No, he ain't. He can't afford it. He knows how to value them. But you take a man that's got about 5 million children running around the house, and it's different. He'd soon chop a child in two as a cat. There's plenty more. A child or two, more or less, or no consequence to Solomon, dad fetch him. I never see such a nigger. If he got a notion in his head once, there weren't no getting it out again. He was the most down on Solomon of any nigger I ever see. So I went to talking about other kings and let Solomon slide. I told about Louis XVI that got his head cut off in France long time ago, and about his little boy, the Dolphin, that would have been king, but they took and shut him up in jail, and some say he died there. Poor little chap. But some say he got out and got away, and come to America. That's good, but it'll be pretty lonesome. There ain't no kings here, is there, Huck? No. Then he can't get no situation. What he want to do? Well, I don't know. Some of them gets on the police, and some of them learns people how to talk French. Why, Huck, don't the French people talk the same way we does? No, Jim. You couldn't understand a word they said, not a single word. Well, now, I'd be ding busted. How did that come? I don't know, but it's so. I got some of their jabber out of a book. Suppose a man was to come to you and say, Parlez-vous Franzy, what would you think? I wouldn't think nothing. I'd take and bust him over the head. That is, if he weren't white. I wouldn't allow no nigger to call me that. Shucks, it ain't calling you anything. It's only saying, do you know how to talk French? Well then, why couldn't he say it? Why, he is a saying it. That's a Frenchman's way of saying it. Well, it's a blame ridiculous way, and I don't want to hear no more about it. There ain't no sense in it. Looky here, Jim. Does a cat talk like we do? No, cat don't. Well, does a cow? No, cow don't nother. Does a cat talk like a cat, or a cow talk like a cat? No, they don't. It's natural and right for them to talk different from each other, ain't it? Of course. And ain't it natural and right for a cat and a cow to talk different from us? Why, most surely it is. Well then, why ain't it natural and right for a Frenchman to talk different from us? You answer me that. Is a cat a man, Huck? No. Well then, there ain't no sense in a cat talking like a man. Is a cow a man, or is a cow a cat? No, she ain't either of them. Well then, she ain't got no business to talk like either one or the other of them. Is a Frenchman a man? Yes. Well then, dad blame it, why don't he talk like a man? You answer me that. I see it weren't no use wasting words. You can't learn a nigger to argue, so I quit.
So, Huck ends the chapter off in a rather distasteful and racist note that you haven't seen in the past few chapters, because it seems as though Huck is progressing into a more well-rounded well, I'm trying to think of a racially accepting person. But here he ends up with that, can't bother, basically can't bother talking to a black person, because there's no point in getting his point across. He just views it as an argument, that something to win, and he views himself as right. And in a way, maybe he is a little bit more correct in his thinking than Jim is, but Jim doesn't have all the experience with people of different ethnicities as Huck does necessarily. So Huck is white, obviously, and in his time as an American white free young man, essentially, he's been into town a lot of the times, and he's been able to see people of different ethnicities and different speaking varieties. And plus, he reads a lot. He reads about kings, dukes, dauphin's, pirates, all this good stuff. So he has a history of an experience of people with different, what's it called when you speak differently? It sounds differently. I can't think of it. Accent. Thank you. Good grief. It was on the top. It was on my brain. I couldn't think of it. People with different accents. Caleb to the rescue. Great. So he ends off the chapter very poorly, and it's not a good look for Huck. And it kind of disappoints the reader, disappointed me that he's saying something like this again, because it seems like he has progressed. It seems like he has come a little bit further in realizing and valuing Jim's humanity, but you'll see as well in the next chapter that he kind of is back to his ways of playing tricks on Jim and not really valuing him as a human, which is unfortunate, but it's a part of Huck's overall progression in the book as a character, as a well-rounded character. He is not quite yet well-rounded Will he ever be? We don't know. Fortunately, a lot more to read. So go ahead and take a minute, if you have not already, to answer the questions of chapter 14 on the reading guide.
Then we
And discuss some of these questions. How about this? How about actually, in approximately 60 seconds, instead of just me asking, 3 different people what they said for question 1, yada yada, you turn to the person next to you, behind you, diagonal, but not across the room. Don't yell. Find an actual person, and that's please no. So discuss with the partner for about 3 to 4 minutes. I'm sensing these questions.
Is this what school looks like? Yeah.
Nope.
I got it.
At least I know what accent is.
Let me go wait.
He's first person.
Angelo, do you want to share with these guys? Please.
Number 1 for chapter 14.
You trying to show me?
What if no one knows what's happening? Did you say what if no one knows what's going on? What did you say?
For one.
Well, that's what's going on. He answered what?
He says he doesn't want any more adventures because it's dangerous.
What do you mean number 12?
Grounded as a drum dead.
Cameron, shut up!
Like Travis? Yes, because it's an adventure. He wants to go on an adventure. And then number 2 is they witness a murderer's murder each other.
Why you look like a CEO or something?
I don't hear enough conversation. I hear a little whispering in the voice.
The kid's on that. Oh, alright. Hey, can I see what you want to go?
Will you tell me to share questions of chapter 14?
Cameron, we're not on that chapter. We're on chapter 14, Cameron.
Darn.
Hello, you have a reading?
14?
You don't have one. Do you have a reading?
I'm still trying to remember and making a hammer house and splitting a baby or a dollar.
Winkies like a
A wise man.
You
tell me what you think.
Split it in 2.
Yeah.
What did you put, Cameron?
Each wife.
Because
That's what I put. I don't know.
I have my answer.
Or you can put that you had a million wives and you like
Yeah.
clap the whole time.
Not well classified.
It's because.
No, that's not the answer. That's true.
Alright, who has a reasonable answer to number 14, chapter 14, number 1?
What?
Olivia.
Okay, I don't know if this is right, but it says that they want Miss Watson to sell them to the South.
He's worried that Ms.
Yeah.
Watson was going to sell him to the south. Okay, that's a possibility. Cameron, you were volunteered to answer.
Oh, what?
Yeah, you were.
Because it's dangerous.
Yeah, essentially because it's dangerous. He doesn't want to risk it anymore. He's had enough of
So I was right.
he's had enough of Huck's adventurous side, and he just kind of wants to. He wants to get to freedom, and he wants to get to freedom safely. He doesn't want to have any more unneeded risks in the name of adventure or fun. Huck doesn't realize this. He doesn't realize so some point he does. He realizes what's going on and the dangers that he and Jim both face. But Jim just wants to play it safe. It's his life. It's his well-being that's at stake. And Huck, as a 12-year-old boy, is what we kind of agreed on. He's just more interested in the thrill. And so far, they've gotten away from all the bad situations that have come upon them, but he's just more interested in the thrill. He's not really thinking about, hey, I'm 30 or 35 years old, and Jim? Yeah. He has a family, so I'm guessing 30, 35, anywhere from 27. Anywhere from 27 to 45-ish. You know, there's not a lot of scholarship on Jim's age as there is as on Huck. Is it or is it not necessarily as important as Huck's age? Because well, it's just something to think about too. It's something to think about.
He said, okay.
Well,
No, go ahead.
that's the final.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
Caleb.
I was thinking about the final.
That is my reaction
Alright.
every time Caleb turns around.
One question about the final until like the week before finals. So
The
We
week
used
before,
the
the
study
week
guide on the final.
How do you even know the finals came out
how
then?
do
He said the week
study
before.
guide? What
Can we use the
study
thing that
guide?
we're writing for?
Oh, the reading guide.
Yeah.
I have not decided.
Please.
I'm not even sure that. I'm gonna say it is necessary for you to use this and study it. Yeah. But as an actual resource on the final, probably not.
What?
Because it's unfortunate.
Clap your brains. Moving on.
Okay,
Like, it's not decided yet.
That's such a
So,
short-
one good question. Moving on. What does Huck think about Jim's argument?
What?
1A, 14, 1A.
Oh wait, we didn't.
Yeah, he thinks he's stubborn, not gonna see his point of view. Basically. What else? Anyone have an answer for 1A? Jordan? Oh. If you think about it, just shout it out, but raise your hand first, play.
Yes.
Oh, he said that Jim's mom has to be just right. And he treats people.
Yeah, well, it's just a contentious and kind of ridiculous back and forth. That's basically it. And lastly, number 2, what does Jim say about King Solomon? First, any background? Who knows who King Solomon is?
He was a king.
Jim was Solomon.
So John said he was a former king of Egypt. Close, he was a former king of Israel in biblical times. And King Solomon, in everyone's circle, basically, so you don't have to be a Christian or have any specific religious beliefs to know this, but King Solomon was known as the wisest king, or king of wisdom, because he never asked God for promises of unending life or victory. He just asked to do things that would bring God and other people honor and glory. So that's why he's known as being wise. So this is what you need to know, the context of what you need to know about King Solomon as just being profoundly wise. And what does Jim say about King Solomon, who is supposedly profoundly wise? Just I have anything about number 2? Okay, so everyone needs to follow along. This is an important passage, as they all are. Some are more important than others. So I just said something kind of very circular. You know what circular means? You say something kind of contradicted, just say the same thing, and it doesn't really mean anything. But yes, this passage is important, so pay attention. Great. Just like you said, so everyone can hear, so everyone needs to be quiet. Yeah, so he thinks King Solomon really wasn't that wise. And he thinks that, why does he think that? Anyone have any evidence? What else did Jim say about King Solomon? Just especially what's the thing about King Solomon's family and his life at home. He has a lot of wives, so Jim said it's not wise to have that many wives. Because why? Because what?
He ain't wise, but why?
Too much
Because he's a fake king.
Stop.
Alright, not really on the right track. Anyway, a simple question would suffice, Jordan. Alright, I'll tell you why. It's not wise to have that many wives, in Jim's opinion, because they talk all the time and you can never have any peace and quiet. That's everyone. I'm not gonna ask again. I'm talking right now, it's good for you to listen. It's very funny that he had a lot of wives. and whatever your jokes are, just get over it for a second. Seriously. So this is Jim's kind of own manly opinion of, women just, don't stop talking, essentially. That's not my view. That's what he's saying. It's not wise to have so many wives because you never have any peace and quiet. But he also says, when you have so many things, you have so many wives, you have so many children, you have so many things that are valuable, so much money, it starts to lose its value. So Jim is thinking, hey, I only have a couple kids, when King Solomon may have had, 30 kids. So, or he only has up to his name and his belongings in his bag that he's traveling with, essentially. And those are his valuables, whereas a King Solomon, or any king in general, has tremendous wealth. They have statues about them, they have gold fountains, they have all this different stuff, where Jim kind of says they don't really realize the value of what they have because they have so much. They get lost in the quantity of what they have rather than the quality. So that's why he thinks that King Solomon is probably not as wise. That is Jim's perspective. Chapter 15.
Chapter 15. We judged that 3 nights more would fetch us to Cairo, at the bottom of Illinois, where the Ohio River comes in, and that was what we was after. We would sell the raft and get on a steamboat and go way up the Ohio amongst the 3 states, and then be out of trouble. Well, the second night a fog begun to come on, and we made for a towhead to tie to, where it wouldn't do to try to run in a fog. But when I paddled ahead in the canoe, with the line to make fast, there weren't anything but little saplings to tie to. I passed the line around one of them on the edge of the cut bank, but there was a stiff current, and the raft come booming down so lively she tore it out by the roots, and away she went. I see the fog closing down, and it made me so sick and scared I couldn't budge for most half a minute, it seemed to me. And then there weren't no raft in sight. You couldn't see 20 yards. I jumped into the canoe and run back to the stern, and grabbed the paddle and set her back a stroke, but she didn't come. I was in such a hurry I hadn't untied her. I got up and tried to untie her, but I was so excited my hands shook so I couldn't hardly do anything with them. As soon as I got started, I took out after the raft, hot and heavy, right down the towhead. That was all right as far as it went, but the towhead weren't 60 yards long. And the minute I flew by the foot of it, I shot out into the solid white fog, and had no more idea which way I was going than a dead man. Thinks I, it won't do to paddle. First I know I'll run into the bank or a towhead or something. I got to set still and float. And yet it's mighty fidgety business to have to hold your hand still at such a time. I whooped and listened. Away down there somewheres I hear a small whoop, and up comes my spirits. I went tearing after it, listening sharp to hear it again. The next time it come, I see I weren't heading for it, but heading away to the right of it. And the next time, I was heading away to the left of it, and not gaining on it much either, for I was flying around this way and...
So one of the things that is important to realize during the reading of this is not necessarily about the content, but actually in the practice of reading. So we are reading it, listening to an audiobook, and you're processing that information through your ears auditorily. And you should also be processing the reading through your eyes, because when you're following along with both a voice and your eyes reading the actual material, you will comprehend the material up to 50% better, or 100% better, or 150% better, or however much you can say. There are different studies. Some studies say that, reading it while listening improves it to 50%, while some say it improves it to double, which would be 100%. So it's really important that you follow along with your eyes on the book. You don't just sit staring into the ceiling, staring into your phone, staring into oblivion, sleeping. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, this is what I'm missing, and I'm imagining the money.
Okay.
Like some scenarios together. Y'all don't do that?
No, yeah.
You can imagine. And that's fine. So if you imagine and you're kind of visually processing it and also listening to it, that's okay. And sometimes, I might be staying on the side thinking, why is Marv just going like this? Why is he just staring blankly? And so now I know. But also there's a healthy mix too. You can't just steer ahead in the name of imagining, you do also have to read silently in your own head. Because it's important when you're reading material to have your own voice. Listen, it's important to have your own voice in your reading material. So this guy on the narration, he's narrating it as a 12-year-old would. But you're 16, 17, 18, 35. I don't know how old you guys are. You never know. You never know. So you have your own internal voice. You have your own internal meaning that interprets it in a way that's different than what this narrator is doing. So it's important to read it silently while listening. Throw in some imagining too. But hey, probably the worst thing you can do is sleeping, although I understand why you want to. But 30 minutes of school, 30 minutes until you can sleep for the rest of the day, right?
I gotta go to workout today.
Well, not sleeping, you can't sleep here.
What kind of, what kind of play?
2 hours of practice.
Why are you afraid?
All right, starting back up.
That nothing. He was going straight ahead all the time. I did wish the fool would think to beat a tin pan and beat it all the time, but he never did. And it was the still places between the whoops that was making the trouble for me. Well, I fought along, and directly I hears the whoop behind me. I was tangled good now. It was somebody else's whoop, or else I was turned around. I throwed the paddle down. I heard the whoop again. It was behind me yet, but in a different place. It kept coming and kept changing its place. And I kept answering till by and by it was in front of me again. And I knowed the current had swung the canoe's head downstream. And I was all right if that was Jim and not some other rasping hollering. I couldn't tell nothing about voices in a fog, for nothing don't look nor sound natural in a fog. The whooping went on, and in about a minute I come a booming down on a cut bank with smoky ghosts of big trees on it. The current throwed me off to the left and shot by, amongst a lot of snags that fairly roared. The current was tearing by them so swift. In another second or two it was solid white and still again. I sat perfectly still then, listening to my heart thump, and I reckon I didn't draw a breath while it thumped 100. I just give up then. I knowed what the matter was. That cut bank was an island. Jim had gone down t'other side of it. It weren't no towhead that you could float by in 10 minutes. It had the big timber of a regular island. It might be 5 or 6 miles long and more than half a mile wide. I kept quiet with my ears cocked about 15 minutes, I reckon. I was floating along, of course, 4 or 5 miles an hour, but you don't ever think of that. No, you feel like you're laying dead still in the water, and if a little glimpse of a snag slips by, you don't think to yourself how fast you're going, but you catch your breath and think, my, how that snag's tearing along. If you think it ain't dismal and lonesome out in the fog that way by yourself in the night, you try it once, you'll see. Next, for about a half an hour, I whoops now and then. At last I hears the answer a long ways off and tries to follow it, but I couldn't do it. And directly I judged I'd got into a nest of towheads, for I had little dim glimpses of them on both sides of me, sometimes just a narrow channel between, and some that I couldn't see I knowed was there because I'd hear the wash of the current against the old dead brush and trash that hung over the banks. Well, I weren't long losing the whoops down among the towheads, and I only tried to chase them a little while anyway, because it was worse than chasing a jack-o'-lantern. You never knowed a sound to dodge around so, and swap places so quick and so much. I had to claw away from the bank pretty lively 4 or 5 times to keep from knocking the islands out of the river, and so I judged the raft must be butting into the bank every now and then, or else it would get further ahead and clear out of hearing. It was floating a little faster than what I was. Well, I seemed to be in the open river again by and by, but I couldn't hear no sign of a whoop nowheres. I reckon Jim had fetched up on a snag maybe, and it was all up with him. I was good and tired, so I laid down in the canoe and said I wouldn't bother no more. I didn't want to go to sleep, of course, but I was so sleepy I couldn't help it. So I thought I would take just one little catnap. But I reckon it was more than a catnap, for when I waked up the stars was shining bright, the fog was all gone, and I was spinning down a big bend stern first. First I didn't know where I was. I thought I was dreaming, and when things began to come back to me, they seemed to come up dim out of last week. It was a monstrous big river here, with the tallest and the thickest kind of timber on both banks, just a solid wall, as well as I could see by the stars. I looked away downstream, and seen a black speck on the water. I took after it. When I got to it, it weren't nothing but a couple of saw logs made fast together. Then I see another speck and chased that. Then another, and this time I was right. It was the raft. When I got to it, Jim was sitting there with his head down between his knees, asleep, with his right arm hanging over the steering oar. The other oar was smashed off, and the raft was littered up with leaves and branches and dirt, so she'd had a rough time. I made fast and laid down under Jim's nose on the raft, and began to gap and stretch my fists out against Jim, and says, "Hello, Jim. Have I been asleep? Why didn't you stir me up? Goodness gracious, is that you, Huck? And you ain't dead? You ain't drowning? You's back again? It's too good for true, honey. It's too good for true. Let me look at you, child. Let me feel of you. No, you ain't dead. You's back again, live and sound, just the same old Huck. The same old Huck, thanks to goodness. What's the matter with you, Jim? You been a-drinking? Drinking? Has I been a-drinking? Has I had a chance to be a-drinking? Well, then, what makes you talk so wild? How does I talk wild? How? Why, ain't you been talking about my coming back and all that stuff, as if I'd been gone away? Huck Finn, you look me in the eye. Look me in the eye. Ain't you been gone away? Gone away? Why, what in the nation do you mean? I ain't been gone anywheres. Where would I go to? Well, looky here, boss. There's something wrong, there is. Is I me? Or who is I? Is I here? Or where is I? Now that's what I want to know. Well, I think you're here plain enough, but I think you're a tangle-headed old fool, Jim. I is I? You answer me this. Didn't you tote out the line in the canoe for to make fast to the towhead? No, I didn't. What towhead? I ain't seen no towhead. You ain't seen no towhead? Looky here. Didn't the line pull loose and the raft go a-humming down the river and leave you in the canoe behind in the fog? What fog? Why, the fog. The fog that's been around all night. And didn't you whoop and didn't I whoop till we got mixed up in the islands and one of us got lost and the other one was just as good as lost, case he didn't know where he was? And didn't I bust up again a lot of them islands and have a terrible time and most get drowned? Now ain't that so, boss? Ain't it so? You answer me that. Well, this is too many for me, Jim. I ain't seen no fog, nor no islands, nor no troubles, nor nothing. I've been sitting here talking with you all night till you went to sleep about 10 minutes ago, and I reckon I done the same. You couldn't have got drunk in that time, so of course you've been dreaming. Dad fetch it. How was I going to dream all that in 10 minutes? Well, hang it all, you did dream it, because there didn't any of it happen. But Huck, it's all just as plain to me as, it don't make no difference how plain it is. There ain't nothing in it. I know, because I've been here all the time. Jim didn't say nothing for about 5 minutes. He just sat there studying over it. Then he says, "Well then, I reckon I did dream it, Huck. Dog my cats if it ain't the powerfulest dream I ever see. And I ain't ever had no dream before that's tired me like this one." "Oh, well, that's all right, because a dream does tire a body like everything sometimes. But this one was a staving dream. Tell me all about it, Jim." So Jim went to work and told me the whole thing right through, just as it happened, only he painted it up considerable. Then he said he must start in and interpret it, because it was sent for a warning. He said the first towhead stood for a man that would try to do us some good, but the current was another man that would get us away from him. The whoops was warnings that would come to us every now and then, and if we didn't try hard to make out to understand them, they'd just take us into bad luck instead of keeping us out of it. A lot of towheads was troubles we was going to get into with quarrelsome people and all kinds of mean folks. But if we minded our business and didn't talk back and aggravate them, we would pull through and get out of the fog and into the big clear river, which was the Free States, and wouldn't have no more trouble. It had clouded up pretty dark just after I got onto the raft, but it was clearing up again now. "Oh, well, that's all interpreted well enough as far as it goes, Jim," I says. "But what does these things stand for?" It was the leaves and rubbish on the raft and the smashed oar. You could see them first rate now. Jim looked at the trash, and then looked at me, and back at the trash again. He had got the dream fixed so strong in his head that he couldn't seem to shake it loose and get the facts back into its place again right away. When he did get the thing straightened around, he looked at me steady without ever smiling and says, "What do they stand for? I's gwine to tell you. When I got all wore out with work and went to calling for you and went to sleep, my heart was most broke because you was lost, and I didn't care no more what become of me and the raft. And when I wake up and find you back again, all safe and sound, the tears come. And I could have got down on my knees and kissed your foot, I'm so thankful. And all you was thinking about was how you could make a fool of old Jim with a lie. That truck there is trash. Trash is what people is that puts dirt on their head or their friends and makes them ashamed." Then he got up slow and walked to the wigwam and went in there without saying anything but that. But that was enough. It made me feel so mean, I could almost kissed his foot to get him to take it back. It was 15 minutes before I could work myself up to go and humble myself to a nigger. But I done it, and I weren't ever sorry for it afterwards neither. I didn't do him no more mean tricks, and I wouldn't done that one if I'd have known it would make him feel that way.
So again, take 1 or 2 minutes to finish answering the questions the best you can. Number 1 shouldn't take that much time. Okay, I'll ask number 1 because it's pretty straightforward, and then for the rest, the other 3, you can share briefly with the partner next to you. So question number 1, let's see, Nathan, what happens to the thick fog? They get separated. Simple enough, they get separated, and then the rest of the chapter is about what happens after Huck comes back. So, with the partner, please take 3 minutes-ish, 1 minute for each question, and talk with the person around you. So you're answering questions number 2, 3, and 4. So you want to tell what lie Huck tells, and you're going to also explain why you think he told it. You're going to explain why Jim is so hurt, and you're going to explain about what Huck does to show his attitude is changing. So, middle of the room. Turn either to the left, to the right, flash a big curly smile, and talk about chapter 4. Excellent. You got the first part down? Yeah. So, few groups.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is it
No?
I'm handing it to you? Do you want my copy? My blank copy?
I can give you mine, it's mine, I'll just fill it out here.
No, it's just good to look outside.
Sure. You don't have to move it. Just turn around and say, "Hey, Andrew, I thought that Jim was supposed to lie. Huck's lie because he's a lost cause.
You know how it's like, yeah, you know how it's choppy. Time up. What if that's how everyone I'm trying to explain something wrong, right? I've been lying for nothing from that day. Yes. How do
Okay, great. 5, 4, 3. I love this technique. It works.
0.
All right. So number 2. Randy, what lie does Huck tell, and why do you think he told it?
Yeah. The lie he told him was that he was dreaming.
Yeah. That none of it happened.
Yeah.
That their separation, the fog didn't happen. So why did he tell it? Second part of that question. Okay, you answered enough. Second part of the question. Let's see, Cameron. He didn't want to seem irresponsible. That could be a part of it, but more so he's just feeling kind of playful and adventurous. He just wants to trick Jim. He just wants to play a good old fashioned trick on Jim. Is it really a good old fashioned trick? Is it?
Yeah.
Does Huck come from a place of lightheartedness and just trying to have fun?
I agree with you.
I'm asking you a question. You think so? Yeah. So in some ways, Huck is coming from a place of lightheartedness because he's 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid, and he wants to have fun, and he doesn't think about the cost of his actions. But also, he wants to play a trick on Jim. He kind of wants to confuse him and make fun of him. So we have the context of him already pulling one of these pranks on Jim with the hat in the tree and Tom Sawyer in the early parts of the play, excuse me, the book. So basically, he tells a lie because he wants to pull a prank on Jim. He wants to get a rise out of the situation. Jordan, what about number 3?
Because he thought that Jim was, he thought that Huck was lost.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually thought that Huck was lost. Here Jim is on this trip to freedom, supposedly, and his only ally is Huck. His only ally and his only friend is Huck, and all of a sudden, Huck is gone, and so Jim is devastated. As say you were traveling across country, you were backpacking. No, okay, you were backpacking in France, and you don't know anybody. You can't speak French. You can speak French about as well as Jim can speak French, right? And all of a sudden, your best friend drowns in a lake.
Oh my God!
Well,
You and dogs dying in the dark? That was really
you think, stay with me, you think your best friend drowns in a lake, but in reality, she or he is just have a cold and didn't come out of their hotel room for the day, right? So no one's dead, but the person who is all alone in France thinks the worst. They think that they are separated forever and that they're totally alone. Just imagine yourself in a foreign land in a dangerous situation. You have one ally. Stay with me. Imagine yourself. See, this is the imagining you can be doing. You're in a yeah. Don't hit the weird comments. Just listen for a sec. Imagine yourself in a foreign land or in a dangerous situation with a language barrier. You have one ally who understands you, knows you, and your goals are aligned to whatever that may be. And all of a sudden, that one friend or ally is totally gone. You would feel alone. You would feel powerless. You'd be afraid. You'd be sad. You'd feel angry. Ready to fight. Jordan.
It's like when you're a kid and then you get lost in the
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's when I just
Number
started.
four.
Still get lost.
Hey, thank you. Number four, lastly, number four. What does Puck do that shows his attitude towards race is progressing, and if his view towards race is progressing? You don't necessarily have to agree that his view towards race is progressing. Yes.
He said that he would never apologize to somebody if that.
Yeah, but he does. So this is kind of a big step for Huck. He apologizes to Jim, which is something that's just totally unheard of in that society. He would never apologize to a slave or a black person just because, it's understood that black people are lesser. That was understood to them. And, obviously that's what Mark Twain is railing against in this book. But it also kind of shows that Huck still has that deeply prejudiced view, because he says, I would never humble myself to a black person because it's something so terrible. Why is merely apologizing to someone, giving them like the basic function of being a human, of just apologizing for something you did wrong? Why is that such a huge action to take? Yeah, in a way, you're putting yourself under that person. Basically, it shouldn't be that big of a step. It really shouldn't be that big of a step. If I were to go home and drive around a little bit, drive to my friend's house and egg his house, I would not. I would say I would have no issue apologizing, because what I did was obviously wrong, and I feel bad for him having to scrape the eggshell and which off his car. So, right. So it's really not that big of an action to take, but in the society, stay with me, in this racist society, apologizing to a black person or even a slave, as Jim was, is a terribly big step. Can we be done now?
Oh, you have to say so.
I heard can we be done now? We have approximately 10 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to diligently work on the dialogue translation, which we do on Wednesday.
Stop saying that.
It's my favorite word. Thank you.
I'm done.
Are you?
Yep.
No, you're not copying my video. Somebody laugh.
I don't actually.
How's that funny? Is that funny?
I can't.
Is that dimension? Yeah, it is. I didn't know yourself. You know what? Stuffed animals. Wait, hold on. Before you come out. Why are you actually
So said,
I actually should have been so hard.
you know it's not funny.
No, you know it's not funny. You want to live? Is that what you want? Don't you nerd?
How am I even supposed to know?
Help!
Don't say it.